So think about the last time you prepared for something really big.
Right, like a massive presentation.
Exactly. A huge pitch to a new client or, I don't know, even just a high-stakes first date.
Yeah, the kind of thing that keeps you up at night.
Oh, absolutely. You probably spent days, maybe even weeks, agonizing over the exact words. You drafted this perfect script, you tweaked your opening joke, you memorized all your bullet points.
You build this completely bulletproof, logical argument.
Right. But what if I told you that the beautifully crafted script you just spent 3 weeks writing, what if that barely even matters?
Well, it's a terrifying thought.
It really is. What if, before you even opened your mouth to say a single word, the person sitting across from you had already completely decided if they trust you, or if they respect you, or if they're just going to reject you outright?
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who relies on their intellect or their vocabulary, that is a massive slap in the face.
It totally is.
Oh.
Welcome to our deep dive today. We are decoding the invisible, silent language that actually dictates your life.
We really are. We live in a world that completely worships words. Yeah.
Totally. Emails, texts, contracts.
Exactly. We have this grand illusion that because we possess this complex language, words are the main way we communicate. But the reality, human beings are locked in this invisible, silent war every single day.
An invisible war. I love that phrasing. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We are pulling from the fascinating work of Alan and Barbara Pease, who are essentially the pioneers of deciphering human biomechanics. And we're going to completely dismantle how you think about communication.
It's going to be a total paradigm shift.
So let's start with a clear overview of the data. Walk us through the actual math here. If I'm giving a huge pitch, how much of my impact is actually coming from that brilliant script I wrote?
It's exactly 7%.
7. Just a single digit.
Just 7%.
You are telling me that 93% of my communication has literally nothing to do with my vocabulary. That is insane.
It sounds anti-intuitive, but that is the reality uncovered by the pioneer researcher Albert Mehrabian. When you are communicating an attitude or an emotion, the actual words are just 7%.
Okay, so where's the rest coming from?
Well, another 38% comes from your vocal tone. So that's the pitch, the speed, the resonance in your chest.
Right, how you sound.
Exactly. But a massive, overwhelming 55% of your message is purely nonverbal. It's your body language.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, the words I say are basically just the tiny, unreadable terms and conditions at the very bottom of a contract.
That's a great way to put it.
Like nobody actually reads them.
Mm.
But my body language, that is the giant flashing neon sign that's actually selling the product.
That is the perfect analogy, yes. Because you can have the most legally sound terms and conditions in the world, but if your neon sign is flashing, I'm super anxious or I'm hiding something, nobody's going to sign that contract.
They're just going to walk away. And the craziest part to me is how incredibly fast that neon sign works. Like, how quickly are we making these judgments?
Oh, it is brutal. In business negotiations, studies that analyzed thousands of recorded sales interviews show that 60 to 80% of the initial opinion someone forms of you is locked in during the first 4 minutes. And in a lot of cases, it actually happens in the first 15 seconds.
15 seconds. I mean, you haven't even had time to plug your laptop into the projector yet. You haven't made a single logical point.
You haven't, no. But your evolutionary biology has already handed over your entire resume.
That is wild.
You have to remember, speech is a very, very recent software update for the human animal. For millions of years, long before we had verbs and nouns, our ancestors survived by instantly reading the physical intentions of the creatures around them.
Right, like, is that primate a threat? Is that posture submissive?
Exactly. We are hardwired to trust what we see way more than what we hear.
So we're basically just walking around in these modern business suits, but underneath we have the exact same neurological hardware as a caveman who's just trying not to get eaten.
That's exactly what we are.
Okay, so if we want to stop being victims in this invisible war, we have to learn how to actively fight it. Let's start with what the authors call the absolute control zone of the human body, your hands.
Oh, the hands are arguably the most sophisticated evolutionary tools we possess.
Because a simple 5-second handshake basically decides who is the master and who is the subordinate, right? Before anyone even says hello.
It does. The neurological connection between your brain and your hands is incredibly dense. So when two humans meet, they instantly engage in this physical struggle using those tools.
But why do we even shake hands in the first place? I mean, it wasn't invented by corporate HR just to build rapport, right?
No, not at all. It's actually a weapons check.
A weapons check. I love that.
Yeah, in our violent past, when primitive tribes met, they would hold their arms out with their palms completely exposed. It was biological proof of life. It basically said, look, my hands are empty, I have no rocks, no spears, I'm not going to kill you.
Okay, but then humans got a little sneakier, didn't they?
They did. Fast forward to the Roman era. Exposing the palm wasn't enough anymore because the Romans were famous for carrying concealed daggers right inside their sleeves.
Oh, wow. So just showing the palm wouldn't prove you were safe.
Exactly. So for protection, they developed the lower arm grasp. Two men would walk up, grab each other's forearms, and physically squeeze to check the sleeve for a hidden blade.
That is so intense.
And over the centuries, as we obviously stopped carrying literal daggers to our business meetings, that forearm grasp just slid down to become the interlocking of palms we use today.
I just love the idea that every time I shake someone's hand at a networking mixer, I am basically performing a medieval pat-down.
You really are.
Mhm.
But it's not just about checking for weapons anymore. It's entirely about establishing dominance.
Okay, let's get to the specifics. Pease identifies 3 distinct palm commands that completely alter the power dynamic. What happens if I approach you to shake hands and my palm is facing up toward the ceiling?
So the palm-up position is pure evolutionary submission.
Submission.
Yes, think of the posture of a street beggar pleading for coins. When you offer your hand palm up, you are telling the other person's primitive brain, I am unarmed, I am vulnerable, and I completely submit to your authority.
Okay, so if I'm apologizing to my boss, or if I really, really want someone to feel like they're in total control of a negotiation, I should consciously use the palm up.
Exactly. It acts as a handover. It basically gives them the psychological floor.
Got it. But what about the second command?
The second is the absolute opposite. It's the palm down position.
Okay, so my hand is flat facing the floor.
Right. If you extend your hand with the palm facing down, you are projecting immediate, unadulterated authority. It is a strict command. It says, I am the master here.
And this isn't just theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can look at the darkest parts of human history to see this action, like the Nazi salute.
It's a chilling example, but yes, it utilized this exact downward-facing palm angle, the arm thrust forward, palm flat, and pointing to the earth.
It was basically the ultimate engineered symbol of tyranny.
Exactly. If Adolf Hitler had tried to rally a nation using a palm-up submissive gesture, the biomechanics would have completely clashed with his message.
Right, no one would have felt the physical threat of his authority at all. It would have looked ridiculous.
Precisely. The palm down is sheer dominance, but then
Yep.
you have the third command, which is arguably the worst one you can use in any kind of communication.
The pointed finger.
The pointed finger.
Honestly, the pointed finger feels like a physical assault.
Mm.
When someone points at me, even if they're just giving me directions to the bathroom, my heart rate actually goes up a little. Why is it so offensive?
Because evolutionarily, a pointed stick or a pointed finger always preceded a physical attack. It is the symbolic spear.
The symbolic spear. Wow.
And research shows that when a speaker points directly at an audience during a presentation, the audience's retention of the information absolutely plummets.
You just stop listening.
They stop listening to the words because their primitive brain is entirely focused on the perceived physical threat of the finger.
That is a massive slap in the face to any speaker who uses aggressive pointing to try and look passionate on stage. You are literally triggering their survival instinct and making them deaf to your words.
You're just shutting them down.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the handshake. I walk into a boardroom, we reach out. How does the angle of the palm actually decide who wins?
Well, when you reach out, if your palm is angled even slightly downward, what we call the upper hand, you are forcing the other person's hand to face upward to meet yours.
So you're forcing them into the submissive position.
Exactly. You have just established dominance. Their subconscious instantly registers, okay, this person is trying to control me. I need to be cautious.
But how often does this actually happen intentionally? Like, are people really walking around actively trying to physically dominate each other at, 9 a.m. on a Tuesday?
The data on this is actually staggering.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A massive study of 350 successful senior management executives found that 88% of the male executives initiated their handshakes with that dominant downward-facing palm.
88%. Almost 9 out of 10 men are actively trying to force you into submission before they even know your name. That is just wild.
It really is.
But what about the women in that exact same study?
Now, this is where we hit a massive gender dynamic issue in the corporate world. Only 31% of the female executives initiated a dominant handshake.
Oh, wow. So there's a huge gap there.
A huge gap. Culturally, many women have been conditioned to use softer, palm-up handshakes to signal agreeableness or traditional femininity.
Right, to seem polite.
Yeah.
But in a high-stakes business context, you're saying that's a mistake?
It's a catastrophic error.
Because if a female executive walks in and gives a submissive palm-up handshake to one of those 88% of men who are playing a dominance game,
She just completely forfeited her authority.
he might think she's pleasant, but his primitive brain has already categorized her as a subordinate.
Exactly. Not a ruthless equal. She is actively undermining the brilliant 7% of words she's about to speak. Because evolution does not care about your job title. The brain reads submission as submission.
So what's the goal then? How do you shake hands correctly?
If you want to be respected as an equal, you have to force the handshake into a perfectly vertical position, like a dead heat arm wrestling match.
Just straight up and down.
Straight up and down. You match their firmness, keep it vertical, and pump 5 to 7 times. That communicates mutual respect.
Okay, but what if you encounter the ultimate power player? You know, the guy, he comes at you stiff-armed, his palm is aggressively angled down, and he's trying to crush your hand and push you down. How do you beat that?
I love this because there's a precise physical footwork hack to neutralize this.
Like an invisible martial art. Walk us through the exact steps.
It's highly counterintuitive. So most people are right-handed and right-footed right.
Right.
So when they walk up to shake hands, they naturally step forward with their right foot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if a power player is coming at you with a palm-down thrust, stepping with your right foot completely traps you. Your arm gets pinned right across your body, and you are forced into that submissive underhand position. You have absolutely no leverage.
You are physically cornered. So what's the fix?
When you approach them, you must consciously force yourself to step forward with your left foot first.
Left foot first, okay.
Then, as your hands actually connect, you bring your right leg forward, stepping entirely across their body and actively invading their intimate personal space.
Oh, so you're basically stepping right into their territory.
Exactly. And finally, you bring your left leg over to join your right, squaring your shoulders to face them directly.
It's a literal pivot. You step left, cross right into their bubble, and square up.
Yes. And by physically moving into their space and changing the angle of your own body, you instantly gain the mechanical leverage to effortlessly twist their hand from that dominant downward position right back into a vertical equal position.
That is brilliant.
And if you want to be particularly aggressive, you can actually keep twisting until their palm is facing up, forcing them into submission. It happens in 2 seconds. They won't consciously know what just happened, but their brain will instantly feel their dominance evaporate.
I am absolutely trying that. And, let's look at this on a global stage, because the most fascinating examples of this invisible war happen right in front of millions of people.
Oh, constantly.
And I want to be incredibly clear with you, the listener, right now. As we look at this next example involving political figures, we are doing so purely as clinical observers of biomechanics.
Yes, strictly neutral.
We are completely ignoring the politics, the policies, the history. We are looking at world leaders exactly the same way a biologist looks at primates establishing a hierarchy.
And with that neutral lens, you can look at the press events between UK Prime Minister Tony Blair and US President George W. Bush during the 2003 Iraq conflict.
Okay, what did the cameras catch there?
Well, the verbal narrative, the 7%, was that they were a united, entirely equal alliance of 2 superpowers. But the kinesics, the physical evidence, completely betrayed that script.
How so?
Frame-by-frame analysis showed George W. Bush consistently utilizing really aggressive physical power plays. He was frequently caught maneuvering the handshake angles to get the dominant upper hand.
Like we just talked about.
Exactly. And furthermore, he repeatedly employed paternalistic dominance gestures, like patting Blair firmly on the back or the shoulder while they were walking.
Now wait, a pat on the back seems friendly, doesn't it? Why is that a power play?
Because you only pat someone on the back or the head if you perceive yourself to be of a higher status.
Oh, like a boss pats an employee, a parent pats a child.
Exactly. You do not reach out and pat the CEO on the shoulder. By constantly touching Blair's back, Bush was non-verbally broadcasting to the entire world, I am the senior partner here, I am in control.
The body language exposed the true hierarchy.
It did.
And speaking of touch, before we leave the hands and arms, There is a mind-blowing statistic about how touch can instantly manipulate compliance.
The 3-second magic trick.
Yes. We like to think we are these highly rational decision makers, but this study from the University of Minnesota involving telephone booths absolutely shatters that. Tell us about the coin drop.
It is a perfect example of how fragile human logic is. So researchers placed coins on the ledge of public telephone booths and hid nearby. When an unsuspecting person walked up, found the coin, and put it in their pocket, the researcher would approach them and say, "Excuse me, did I leave a coin here?"
And naturally, most people probably just lied and kept the money.
They did. In the control group, where the researcher simply walked up and asked the question, only 23% of people admitted to finding the coin and gave it back.
Only 23%. Wow.
But then the researchers changed one tiny, tiny variable. When they approached the next group and asked the exact same question, they lightly touched the person's elbow for no more than 3 seconds.
Just a tiny brush of the elbow.
Just 3 seconds.
And what happened?
The return rate skyrocketed from 23% to 68%.
Wait, a 3-second touch on the elbow nearly tripled a stranger's willingness to give up money. How is that even biologically possible?
Well, the elbow is generally considered a public, neutral space on the body, so touching it isn't perceived as overly aggressive or intimate. But that brief 3-second physical contact creates an instant, unconscious biological bond.
It just bypasses their logic.
Completely. It breaks down the barrier between strangers. The brain registers the touch, assumes a level of familiarity and trust, and suddenly the person feels an overwhelming psychological pressure to cooperate. It bypasses logic entirely.
It's basically a cheat code for human interaction. Just touch the elbow. But what happens when the biology actually works against you? Like, what if you know the left footstep, you know the elbow touch, but your anxiety just takes over, and right before the meeting, your hands turned absolute ice?
Ah, the dreaded cold fish handshake.
It's the worst. It feels incredibly weak, and you know the other person is instantly judging you for handing them a wet salmon. Why does the body betray us like that?
That is your sympathetic nervous system reacting to a perceived threat. Going into a high-stakes interview triggers the exact same fight-or-flight response as running from a predator.
So your brain literally thinks you're about to be eaten by the hiring manager.
Essentially, yes. Your brain diverts blood away from the outer layer of the skin on your hands, the dermis, and pumps it directly into your major arm and leg muscles so you can physically fight or run away.
So your hands literally drain of blood and go freezing cold. And what about the sweat?
Your sweat glands activate to preemptively cool your body down for the intense physical exertion it thinks is coming, hence freezing, clammy hands.
But Pease outlines an absolutely bizarre, almost Jedi mind trick to fix this, right? You don't just awkwardly wipe your hands on your pants.
Yeah.
While you are sitting in the lobby, you're supposed to close your eyes and vividly visualize holding your hands in front of a roaring open fire.
I know it sounds like mystical self-help, but it is deeply grounded in neurology.
Really? How?
The human brain actually struggles to distinguish between a vividly imagined physical sensation and a real one. If you concentrate deeply enough on the visualization of a fire, your brain will react to the imagined heat.
No way.
Yes, it will signal the blood vessels in your extremities to relax and dilate, sending the blood right back to your hands. Studies show this mental exercise can actually raise the physical temperature of your palms by 3 to 4 degrees in a matter of minutes.
You can physically hack your own vascular system with your imagination. That is incredible. Okay, so we've covered the absolute power of the hands. But what happens when the hands start moving on their own because our brain is panicking?
You mean when we start lying?
Yes. Because this brings us to what happens when the script diverges completely from reality. When the words coming out of your mouth are a 100% calculated lie.
This is where the biological betrayal of the body becomes truly undeniable. Because no matter how old you are or how sophisticated you think you are, when you tell a lie, your brain triggers the exact same physical mechanism you used when you're 5 years old.
I love this concept so much. You think you're an adult, you pay a mortgage, you manage a team, but your body is still acting like a toddler trying to hide a broken cookie jar.
Exactly.
Walk us through this evolution of deceit. How does a 5-year-old lie?
So when a 5-year-old child tells a lie, say, they break a lamp and say, "I didn't do it," their subconscious brain instantly recognizes that a deceptive act is occurring.
Right, they know it's bad.
And it sends an urgent reflex signal to the body to physically block the false words from escaping. The child will literally slap one or both hands completely over their mouth. It's an instinctive attempt to just stuff the lie back inside.
It's adorable. honestly, and completely transparent. But obviously, teenagers don't do that.
Right. By the time that child is 15, they're socially conditioned. They know a full mouth slap is a dead giveaway to their parents.
Yeah, that won't work anymore.
So the gesture evolves. When the teenager lies, the brain still fires that exact same command. Block the mouth. The hand flies up. But the conscious mind slightly modifies it. Instead of a full palm block, the teenager will gently rub their fingers around their lips, or maybe fake a small cough.
Ah, so the primitive impulse is identical, but the execution is just camouflaged.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the 50-year-old CEO sitting across from you at a negotiation table telling you the company's financials are flawless when they are actually bankrupt. What happens to him?
The exact same neural pathway fires. The adult brain screams, "Block the deceitful words," and the hand begins its journey upward toward the mouth.
But he's not going to cough into his hand.
No, because this adult has decades of social conditioning, their conscious mind catches the movement at the very last millisecond. It knows a mouth cover looks highly suspicious. So the hand is forcefully diverted away from the mouth, resulting in a quick, seemingly innocent touch or rub of the nose.
The nose touch. It's literally just the adult version of the 5-year-old's mouth slap. But wait, I've confronted people who did this, and they get highly defensive. They say, "I'm not lying, my nose genuinely just itched."
And the insane part is they are actually telling the truth about the itch.
Wait, what?
Yes, this is what they call the Pinocchio effect, and it is pure, undeniable biology. Scientists at the Smell and Taste Treatment and Research Foundation in Chicago actually investigated this. They discovered that when you tell an intentional lie, your body undergoes a severe chemical stress response.
Okay, what kind of chemicals?
You release a flood of chemicals called catecholamines.
Catecholamines. And what do they do to the body?
They cause a sudden, rapid spike in your blood pressure. Now, the tissue inside your nasal cavity is highly vascular. It is packed with really sensitive blood vessels. When your blood pressure spikes from the stress of the lie, the tissue inside your nose physically engorges with blood. It actually swells.
Like a biological alarm bell going off in your face.
That's precisely. And the expert researchers made a rather humorous observation when they used thermal body imaging cameras on men who are lying. They can clearly see that the penis also swells with blood due to the exact same autonomic vascular response.
Oh my God. Well, thank goodness for tailored suits, I guess. So the nose physically swells with blood.
It swells, and that sudden engorgement stimulates the nerve endings in the nasal passage, causing an intense, localized, tingling itch. You literally have to scratch it.
Wow.
So when the adult's hand flies up to block the mouth and diverts to the nose, it is executing a brilliant biological 2-for-1. It satisfies the psychological urge to cover the mouth and the physical urge to scratch the chemically induced itch.
The Pinocchio effect is actually real. Like, the nose doesn't magically grow longer, but it physically swells and itches.
It does.
And we have another perfect, high-stakes historical example of this. And again, purely analyzing the physiological data here, stripping away all the politics and the scandal. Let's look at Bill Clinton.
Yes. American neurologist Alan Hirsch and psychiatrist Charles Wolfe conducted a rigorous scientific analysis of President Bill Clinton's testimony to the grand jury regarding the Monica Lewinsky situation. They mapped his physical responses minute by minute against the established facts.
Okay, so they knew exactly when he was lying and when he was telling the truth. What did the data show?
The contrast was just staggering. When Clinton was answering questions where he was known to be telling the absolute verifiable truth, the researchers recorded 0 nose touches. His physical baseline was completely calm.
0, okay.
But when the questioning shifted into areas where he was actively deviating into deceit, his physiology completely betrayed him. During those specific periods of lying, he touched his nose 26 times.
26 times. The data says that was an average of once every 4 minutes.
It was a biological metronome of deceit. His blood pressure was spiking, the catecholamines were flooding his system, his nasal tissue was swelling, and his hands simply could not resist satisfying the itch. The biology overrode his immense conscious control.
It really makes you wonder how often this is happening around us every single day. Because, we like to think we are generally honest people, but the statistics on human lying are honestly a bit depressing.
Oh, Robert Feldman's research at the University of Massachusetts reveals exactly how deceptive we are. He studied average adults in conversational settings and found that 62% of people tell an average of 2 to 3 lies every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes. We are lying constantly.
We really are. Now, most of them are white lies, I love that haircut or traffic is terrible. But the physical stress of those lies still leaks out.
So if the nose touch is the most common one, what are the other micro gestures? Like, if the nose touch is speak no evil, what is the adult version of see no evil?
That would be the eye rub. When a child sees something terrifying, they throw their hands over their eyes, right?
Yeah.
When an adult is telling a massive lie, they experience an intense psychological desire to avoid looking at the face of the person they are deceiving. Their brain attempts to literally block out the deceit by triggering an urge to rub the eye.
And there's a massive gender difference in how we actually execute the eye rub.
Right. Oh, very distinct. Men tend to rub their eyes vigorously, often digging their fists in as if they have dust in their eye. And if the lie is particularly large, they will avert their gaze entirely, usually looking right down at the floor.
And what do women do?
Well, women are socially conditioned from a young age to protect their eye makeup.
Oh, of course. Don't smudge the mascara.
Exactly. So their gesture is much more subtle. A woman is more likely to use a gentle, light dabbing motion just below the eye. And instead of looking at the floor, she will cast her gaze upwards in a way to break eye contact.
It's fascinating how culture overrides biology just enough to protect the makeup, but the underlying lie still completely leaks out.
It always leaks.
But this brings up a massive counterintuitive point, a real slap in the face to how we normally judge people. When we want to know if someone is lying, where do we usually look?
We stare right at their face.
Exactly. We stare at their face, we look for a twitch, we look at their smile. But the research says looking at the face is actually the absolute worst thing you can do. Why is that?
Because the face is the most highly trained pathological liar on your entire body.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. From the time you are an infant, you are actively taught to manipulate your facial expressions. Parents tell you, smile for grandma, or don't look angry, or look surprised when you open the gift. By the time you are an adult, you are an expert facial actor. You can command your face to do almost anything.
But wait, let's challenge this for a second. Don't liars usually smile to cover up their tracks? Like if I'm talking to a slick, overly smiley used car salesman, my instinct is that he is lying to me specifically because he's smiling so much.
That is what scientists call the smile fallacy. Dr. Paul Ekman, who is the world's leading researcher on facial expressions, proved that this intuition is entirely backward. When people deliberately lie, especially men, they actually smile less than they normally do.
Less? That seems completely backwards. Shouldn't they want to seem super friendly to con you?
You have to look at the cognitive load and the evolutionary meaning of a smile.
Okay, break that down for me.
First, lying requires an immense amount of brain power. You have to invent a false reality, you have to remember it flawlessly, and you have to constantly monitor the other person to ensure they are buying it. The brain is working in absolute overdrive.
Right.
So it doesn't have the spare bandwidth to maintain a natural, complex facial expression, so the face often just goes somewhat blank or rigid.
And what about the evolutionary piece?
Well, a genuine smile is an evolutionary submission signal. It tells the other person, I am harmless, I am friendly, I am not a threat. But when you are actively lying, your primitive brain knows you are engaging in a hostile, deceptive act.
Oh, because lying is an attack.
Exactly. You feel like you are in danger of being caught. And an animal in danger does not flash submission signals. It prepares for conflict. Therefore, the liar's brain unconsciously restricts the genuine smile because it feels threatened.
So the person who is staring at you with a perfectly straight face may be holding your gaze a little too intensely to, quote-unquote, prove they are telling the truth. That person is statistically much more likely to be lying than the person who's smiling warmly.
Yes. And even if a liar does try to force a smile to con you, it is almost always a fake one. Ekman's research mapped this perfectly. The muscles are completely different.
Really? How do you spot a fake smile?
Well, a genuine smile, a Duchenne smile, is generated unconsciously. It triggers the zygomatic major muscles in the cheeks, which pull the mouth up, but crucially, it also triggers the orbicularis oculi muscles around the eyes.
So it creates crow's feet.
Exactly. A real smile reaches the eyes. A fake smile, on the other hand, is consciously controlled, and we can generally only command the mouth muscles to move, so the eyes remain completely dead.
The dead-eye smile, it's terrifying, like a shark. But let's talk about gender and smiling, because there is a shocking statistic in the data about how smiling is actually destroying authority in the workplace.
It is a massive, massive handicap. Studies show that in social situations, women smile roughly 87% of the time, while men smile only 67% of the time.
That's a huge gap, 87 versus 67.
And in a purely social setting, this makes women appear warmer and more empathetic. But in a corporate or dominance-based environment, this excessive smiling becomes a weapon that is used against them.
Because as we established earlier, a smile is a biological submission signal.
Exactly. If a woman is presenting a serious proposal in a boardroom and she is constantly flashing submission signals, smiling to be polite, smiling to soften her tone, smiling to make others comfortable, the male-dominated audience subconsciously decodes her as lacking authority.
They just stop taking her seriously.
Research shows that an unsmiling man is judged as dominant, serious, and powerful. An unsmiling woman is often unfairly judged as angry or unhappy. But if she wants to retain her power in a negotiation, she has to stop the automatic, placating smiles.
She is basically giving away her power 87% of the time just to make everyone else feel comfortable.
Yeah.
That is a brutal reality check.
It really is.
And speaking of gender differences, who is actually better at lying overall? Because if men are doing the vigorous eye rub and forgetting to smile, they honestly don't sound very good at this.
Sanjita O'Connell's research is absolutely definitive on this. Women are vastly superior liars.
Vastly superior. Are they just more devious?
Not at all. They are just neurologically much more adept at reading and manipulating emotional data. Men tend to tell very simple binary lies. My battery died, or I missed the train. These are easily disprovable physical facts.
Right, I can just check your phone.
Exactly. Women, however, tell highly complex, emotionally nuanced lies that are designed to deflect suspicion and play on the listener's empathy. And furthermore, because women are vastly better at decoding body language in others, they intuitively know exactly what body language the observer expects to see, and they can fake it more effectively.
Okay, so if the face is a highly trained mask, and the hands can be controlled if you're smart enough, where do we actually look? If I want the unvarnished truth from someone, where do my eyes go?
To find the truth, you must look down. You have to understand the geography of honesty.
The geography of honesty, I love that. What is the rule there?
The biological rule is simple. The further a body part is from the brain, the less conscious awareness and control we have over it.
So, the feet?
The legs and the feet. We spend all of our cognitive energy micromanaging our facial expressions and keeping our hands resting quietly on the table. By the time that neural control signal travels all the way down the spinal cord to the feet, there is virtually zero bandwidth left. Our lower body operates almost entirely on unconscious, honest impulses.
So our feet are basically just blurting out the truth, while our mouths are lying.
It's remarkably accurate. The authors detail experiments where corporate managers were instructed to lie convincingly during staged interviews. Now, they knew they were being observed, so they were trying their absolute best to beat the test.
And did they?
They successfully kept their faces completely calm, and their hands were resting perfectly still on the table. But under the table, where they thought no one was looking, their lower bodies went absolutely crazy.
What were they doing down there?
Dramatic increases in foot tapping, ankle locking, restless leg shifting. But the most revealing gesture of all was the pointing of the feet. When people are under the severe stress of a lie, their feet will unconsciously point directly toward the nearest door.
Because their primitive brain just wants to escape the danger of the lie.
Exactly. The brain is screaming, "Get me out of here!" and the feet physically align with the escape route. Observers who could see the whole body caught the liars instantly.
You know, this completely explains a mystery of corporate architecture for me. I've always wondered why CEOs, bank managers, and high-level executives insist on sitting behind massive, solid oak desks. I always thought it was just to look important, but it's not. It's a physical shield.
It is a defensive barrier. An executive feels incredibly vulnerable if their entire body is exposed, because deep down, they know their legs might betray their anxiety, their impatience, or their deception. A solid desk completely blocks the observer from seeing the most honest, uncontrollable part of the anatomy. Behind a desk, they only have to lie with the top half of their body, which is significantly easier.
It's brilliant. If you want the truth from a CEO, take away their desk.
Yes.
But the desk isn't the only barrier we use. What about our own bodies? You look at a boardroom, and half the people are sitting there with their arms crossed over their chest. We always say, oh, I'm just cold, or it's just comfortable. But the data on arm crossing is actually terrifying if you're a speaker or a teacher, right?
It is a massive cognitive wall. When you cross your arms over your chest, you are biologically creating a protective barrier across your vital organs, your heart and your lungs. You are locking yourself away from the environment.
And what does that do to the brain?
The impact on learning and listening is disastrous. Studies took 2 groups of people attending a lecture. One group was told to keep their legs and arms uncrossed in a relaxed, open posture. The other group was told to tightly fold their arms across their chests.
Let me guess, the folded arms group didn't like the lecture as much.
It's much worse than just not liking it. Testing showed that the group with crossed arms retained exactly 38% less information than the open posture group.
38% of the information just vanished from their memory, just because of how their arms were positioned.
Yes, because when your body enters a defensive posture, your brain automatically shifts into a critical defensive cognitive state. You stop absorbing information openly and you start looking for flaws and threats. You become significantly more critical of the speaker. So if you are pitching to a room full of crossed arms, you might as well be speaking to a brick wall.
So what do? You have to get them to uncross their arms, right?
You physically have to get them to uncross their arms, hand them a document to hold, or offer them a cup of coffee, break the physical barrier, and you break the mental barrier. Otherwise, they simply will not retain what you are saying.
Hand them a coffee. That is such a simple, actionable hack. But what if you're the one feeling defensive? What if you're famous or royalty and you're terrified of the crowd, but you know you can't just stand there with your arms crossed like a grumpy teenager?
This is where we see the evolution of what we call hidden barriers. Public figures, politicians, and royalty know they cannot cross their arms. It looks weak and defensive on camera, so they develop highly sophisticated camouflage.
Like what? What are they doing?
They will reach across their body to constantly adjust a watch strap, or fiddle with a cufflink, or hold a purse tightly with two hands right in front of their stomach.
Ah, so it achieves the exact same physical barrier, the arm crosses the body, but it looks like they're just fixing their clothes.
Exactly. Prince Charles, now King Charles, is a classic textbook example of this. If you watch historical footage of him walking into highly scrutinized public environments, you will see him constantly reaching across his body to adjust his cufflinks or check his sleeves.
It's an anxiety patch.
It's an unconscious anxiety patch. Psychologists actually call it a mother substitute. It mimics the feeling of being held or protected. He is using his own arm to shield his vital organs from the perceived threat of the massive crowd.
The future King of England, using a cufflink as an emotional pacifier. It just shows that literally no amount of wealth or status protects you from primate biology.
We are all just biology in the end.
Okay, so we know how to read the hands, we know how to spot a lie in the nose and the feet, and we know how to break down cross arms. How do we put all of this together to completely hack the way a stranger perceives us in the very first moment we meet? Because if the verdict is decided in 15 seconds, we need a serious game plan.
The 15-second verdict is arguably the most brutal reality of human interaction. Professor Frank Bernieri at the University of Toledo proved just how inescapable this is.
What did his study look like?
He had professional HR interviewers conduct rigorous 20-minute job interviews with various candidates. After the 20 minutes, the interviewers rated the candidates on competence, ambition, intelligence, and overall hireability.
Yeah.
Standard stuff.
The stressful corporate gauntlet.
Right. Then, Bernieri took video recordings of those exact interviews. But he cut the videos down to just the first 15 seconds. Literally just the candidate opening the door, walking in, shaking hands, and sitting down. And furthermore, he turned the sound completely off.
No sound at all. So the new observers couldn't hear the tone of voice. They couldn't hear if the candidate was articulate or fumbling their words. Pure visual data.
Just bodies moving in space. He showed these 15-second silent clips to a completely new group of observers and asked them to rate the candidates on the exact same metrics.
Let me guess. The ratings were the same.
They were virtually identical. The complex judgments made in 15 silent seconds by strangers identically matched the conclusions of the HR professionals who spent 20 minutes grilling them verbally.
That is terrifying.
You literally do not get a second chance to make a first impression. The interviewer's brain has decided your competence, your status, and your ambition before you have answered a single question about your resume.
Okay, that means the moment your hand touches the doorknob to the building, the game is absolutely on. Every microsecond counts. Let's build a playbook for total control from second zero. Let's start right in the reception area. You arrive for the interview. The receptionist smiles and says, "Please take a seat. The manager will be right with you." Pease has a very specific hard rule here. Never ever sit down. Why?
Because receptionists want you to sit down for their own spatial control. When you sink into a low, plush waiting room sofa, you physically disappear from their radar. You become a non-entity. You have physically lowered your status and made yourself small and submissive.
So you just stand there. How do you stand without looking like a nervous wreck pacing the floor?
To maintain your power and presence, you utilize what the authors call the Prince Philip pose.
The Prince Philip pose.
Yes. You stand upright, feet slightly apart, and you confidently clasp your hands behind your back.
Wait, behind the back. Isn't it better to have them in front of you, ready to shake hands when they walk out?
Holding them in front almost always turns into a defensive barrier, what we call the fig leaf pose. By locking your hands behind your back, you completely expose your chest, your stomach, and your throat, your most vulnerable vital organs.
Oh, I see.
It is the ultimate display of biological superiority and confidence. It signals to everyone in the room, I am so powerful and so unthreatened in this environment that I don't even need to guard my vital organs. You just slowly rock back and forth on your feet. You do not look like an anxious applicant begging for a job. You look like a monarch surveying your territory.
You are literally projecting fearlessness.
Okay.
So you're standing like royalty. The interviewer comes out. You give them the perfect vertical handshake, stepping in with your left foot. You walk into their office and you sit down. What's the next move? Because apparently this is where we usually ruin it.
Yes, this is where you use the 3-second pause. Most people, the exact moment they sit down in an interview, instantly freeze, lock eyes with the interviewer, and wait nervously with a fake smile for the first question to drop. It creates a highly awkward, static tension.
So what should we do instead?
When you sit down, take 2 to 3 seconds to deliberately look away. Open your briefcase, arrange a folder, take out a pen, adjust your notes.
But doesn't that make you look unprepared or distracted?
Yeah.
I feel like I'd want to be laser focused on them.
It actually achieves something vital. It gives the interviewer an uninterrupted, socially acceptable window to look you over.
Ah.
Their primitive brain biologically needs to assess you to check your clothing, your posture, your grooming to complete their visual profiling. If you are staring right at them, they cannot do this scan without feeling rude, which creates subtle frustration and anxiety in them. By breaking eye contact and appearing busy for 3 seconds, you allow them to complete their visual scan comfortably. Then you look up, establish strong eye contact, and the meeting begins smoothly on your terms.
It is brilliant tactical empathy. You are basically giving their primate brain the 3 seconds it needs to feel safe. Now, you mentioned eye contact. Let's talk about the geometry of the gaze. Because it's not just staring someone down to prove dominance. There is actual precise math to this, and if you get the percentages wrong, you destroy trust completely.
The math is incredibly precise. Social psychologist Michael Argyle quantified human eye contact behavior. He found that in typical Western conversations, the average amount of time 2 people spend looking into each other's eyes is roughly 61%.
So slightly more than half the time we are holding a gaze.
Right. Now, here is the actionable tactic. If you want someone to genuinely like you, to feel a strong rapport and trust with you, you must intentionally meet their gaze 60 to 70% of the time. You are slightly over-indexing on the average, which makes them feel deeply valued, heard, and important.
Okay, but what happens if I'm nervous? What if I keep looking away at my notes or looking out the window and I drop below that threshold?
If you meet their gaze less than 33% of the time, their primitive brain will instantly tag you as either pathologically submissive or actively deceitful.
Oh, wow.
They will intuitively feel that you are untrustworthy, that you are hiding something, your words could be absolutely brilliant, your arguments flawless, but their brain is screaming, do not trust this person.
Now, we must throw a massive cultural caveat in here. The authors heavily emphasize that this 60 to 70% rule is strictly for Western and European cultures.
Oh, a crucial point. If you take that exact eye contact strategy to Japan, it will be a complete disaster.
Why?
In Japanese culture, extended direct eye contact is perceived as highly aggressive, disrespectful, and physically invasive. Japanese professionals are culturally conditioned to focus their gaze on the other person's throat or neck area to show respect while maintaining attention. If you stare into a Japanese executive's eyes 70% of the time trying to build Western rapport, you will deeply offend and intimidate them.
Always read the cultural room. But it's not just how much you look, it's where you look on the face. Pease talks about gaze triangles. If I want to be friendly versus if I want to dominate.
Yes. Where your eyes track across the other person's face dictates the entire nature of the relationship. The first is the social gaze. Imagine a triangle drawn between the other person's eyes and their mouth.
Okay, a triangle pointing down.
Right. When you are at a party or building friendly rapport, your eyes naturally wander around this lower triangle. It feels warm and unthreatening.
And the power gaze. If I need to establish absolute authority in a negotiation and shut someone down.
You shift the triangle up. Imagine a third eye sitting perfectly in the center of their forehead. You draw a triangle between their two actual eyes and that spot on their forehead. By keeping your gaze locked strictly in that upper zone and never dropping below their eye line to their mouth, you exert immense psychological pressure. It changes the atmosphere instantly. They will feel an undeniable weight of authority, and it is a brilliant tactic to use if you need to shut down an aggressive opponent without saying a single word.
Just stare at the middle of their forehead and watch them crumble.
Yeah.
I'm definitely using that. Now, what about the pupils themselves? We can control where we look, but we can't control our pupils. And there's a massive biological tell here that ancient jewelers and modern poker players totally exploit.
Pupil dilation is the ultimate uncontrollable window into human desire. In identical lighting conditions, when you see something you want or something that excites you, your autonomic nervous system causes your pupils to rapidly dilate, sometimes expanding up to 4 times their normal size.
4 times?
Yes. Conversely, if you see something you hate or you are angry, your pupils shrink into tiny little beady eyes.
And people exploit this.
Ruthlessly. Ancient Chinese jewelers used to watch the pupils of their buyers. When a buyer saw a gem they desperately wanted, their pupils would dilate, and the jeweler instantly knew they could charge a much higher price, regardless of how indifferent the buyer tried to act verbally.
They didn't even need to hear them negotiate. The eyes gave it away.
Modern professional poker players do exactly the same thing. If a player gets dealt a pair of aces, their pupils will dilate involuntarily. That is precisely why you see poker pros wearing dark sunglasses indoors. They are hiding the biological signal of their excitement.
That is wild. The body leaks out everything. So we've controlled the eyes, the hands, the posture. Let's talk about space. Because the invisible war isn't just about bodies, it's about the air between the bodies, the invisible bubbles we carry around with us.
Proxemics, the study of spatial distances, is critical. Every human being carries a portable air bubble around them. For the average Western middle-class professional, the intimate zone is roughly 6 to 18 inches from their body. This space is strictly reserved for lovers, children, and close family.
So what happens if a stranger or a coworker steps into that 18-inch bubble?
Your body treats it as a literal invasion. The brain pumps adrenaline into the bloodstream, your heart rate accelerates, and blood rushes to your muscles. Your body is preparing to fight off an attacker, even if it's just a coworker leaning in too close to look at your computer screen. You feel an overwhelming sense of anxiety and anger.
Which perfectly explains why crowded elevators are so incredibly awkward. We are forcefully packed into everyone's intimate zone. How do we survive an elevator without breaking into a fistfight?
We survive it by adopting a strict, unspoken set of rules to mentally turn the other people into non-humans. When you get into a crowded elevator, notice what happens. Everyone completely stops talking. They refuse to make eye contact. They stare rigidly at the floor, numbers changing. They keep their facial expressions totally blank, and they restrict all body movement.
We basically turn into mannequins.
Exactly. By doing this, we signal, I am physically in your space, but I am not psychologically invading it. I am an inanimate object.
And this space issue causes massive cross-cultural collisions too, right? Like the waltz between the American and the Japanese businessman.
That is one of the most famous observational studies in kinesics. Different cultures have different sized air bubbles. An American's intimate zone is 18 inches, but a Japanese professional's intimate zone is only 10 inches.
Oh, wow. That's an 8-inch discrepancy. That is a recipe for disaster.
It creates a comical yet highly damaging physical tango. At an international conference, you will see an American and a Japanese executive talking. To feel comfortable, the Japanese executive steps forward to reach his 10-inch comfort zone.
Right.
But stepping to 10 inches violently invades the American's 18-inch zone. The American feels threatened, so he subconsciously takes a step backward to reestablish his 18 inches. But now the Japanese executive feels disconnected, so he steps forward again.
So they are literally just chasing each other around the room.
From above, it looks exactly like a waltz. The tracking lines just parallel each other across the floor. The tragedy is, if they don't understand body language, they walk away with terrible impressions. The American thinks the Japanese executive is pushy, aggressive, and disrespectful of boundaries. The Japanese executive thinks the American is cold, aloof, and elitist.
And the 7% of their words were probably perfectly polite.
Perfectly polite. But the 8-inch discrepancy in their spatial biology completely destroyed the relationship.
It's all about territory. And speaking of territory, we have to touch on the desk lines. We mentioned CEOs hiding their feet behind desks earlier, but the top of the desk is a battlefield too.
Yes, a rectangular desk is subconsciously divided into a 50-50 territorial split. An invisible boundary line runs right down the middle. When you are in a negotiation and you slide a contract or a proposal across the desk to the other person, watch exactly what they do.
What are the possible outcomes?
If they reach out, take the document, and pull it completely across the invisible center line into their half of the desk, it is a massive signal of acceptance. They are physically bringing your idea into their territory.
Okay, what's the bad outcome?
If they lean forward to read it, but leave it on your side of the line, or worse, physically push it back across the line toward you, you are in deep trouble.
They are rejecting the invasion.
Exactly. They are defending their territory. If they push it back, do not force it. Do not lean over and push it closer to them. That is a spatial assault. You must back off, change your verbal pitch, and wait for them to physically invite the document back into their space.
It's all about recognizing the red lines. And physical positioning dictates so much more than just power. It actually dictates brain performance. There's this concept of the classroom funnel that really blew my mind. Where you sit literally determines how much your brain absorbs.
This is a terrifying reality for education and corporate training. Research mapping traditional row-style classroom layouts reveals a distinct funnel zone. Imagine a triangle starting at the instructor and flaring out to encompass the center of the front rows, running straight down the middle of the room.
The center axis.
Right. Students sitting inside this funnel have the highest levels of engagement, the highest participation, and the highest retention of information.
What about the students on the sides, by the windows, or way back in the back rows?
As soon as you step outside that central funnel, retention and engagement drop off a cliff. The students in the back corners are practically invisible to the flow of energy in the room. They participate the least and score the lowest. It's not necessarily that bad students sit in the back, it's that the physical geometry of the room filters out their attention.
So if you want to maximize your learning, or if you want to ensure your boss actually hears your ideas in a meeting, you must physically position yourself in the central funnel.
Position is destiny.
Let's touch on one more biological bias before we wrap this up, because it is the ultimate slap in the face to our modern progressive society. We like to think we promote people based on merit, intelligence, and hard work, but the Height economics data proves that our inner caveman is still running the payroll.
It is a profound biological bias. In our evolutionary past, a taller, larger primate was obviously a better protector and a better gatherer of resources. Our brains still equate height with authority and competence today.
And the financial data backs this up.
The financial data on this is stunning. Studies tracking corporate salaries found that at the director level and above, for every 1 inch of height a person has over the average, their annual salary package increases by roughly $600 to $1,000.
You are literally getting paid a premium per inch of leg bone. That is insane.
It is the tall multiplier, and it applies heavily to evolutionary mating strategies as well. Research into the perfect biological pairing suggests that across cultures, the ideal height ratio for a couple is 1.09.
1.09.
Meaning, the man is optimally 1.09 times taller than the woman. This specific ratio satisfies the subconscious evolutionary desire for physical protection while maintaining physical compatibility. It is raw, unvarnished biology dictating our most complex modern choices.
Capitalist economics and genetic mating, all driven by the length of a femur bone. It really puts our massive intellects into perspective.
It really does. Oh, and before we finish, we can't ignore how this biological matching affects the ultimate human relationship, marriage.
Right. The physiological sync. This is John Gottman's research, isn't it?
Yeah.
The cold countdown to a dying marriage.
Yes. Gottman found that the real killer of a marriage isn't the loud, explosive arguments. It's the micro-expressions. In a healthy relationship, partners physiologically sync up. They mirror each other's smiles, their pupil dilations match.
So what happens when the marriage is failing?
If one partner makes a joke or shows an emotion, and the other partner responds with a micro-expression of disdain, like a tiny asymmetrical tightening of the corner of the mouth, and there is zero physiological resonance, the marriage is statistically doomed. The lack of physical mirroring is the biological death knell.
The death knell is just a one-sided smirk. Okay, let's take a breath and pull all of these threads together. We have covered an immense landscape today.
We really have.
We started with the brutal reality of the 55% rule. We moved through the absolute physical control of a palm-down handshake, the tactical left foot step required to dismantle a power player, and the 3-second elbow touch that triples compliance.
We explored the deeply ingrained biology of lying, the catecholamines flooding the system, the nose physically swelling with blood, and the 5-year-old brain desperately trying to stop the words from escaping.
We looked at the myth of the fake smile, realizing that a straight face is often more dangerous than a smiling one. We uncovered the geography of honesty, learning that the true intentions of any human being are almost always pointing straight out of their shoes.
From the 15-second verdict that seals your fate in a job interview, to the exact percentages of eye contact required to manufacture trust, to the waltz of cultural air bubbles.
The overarching theme is just undeniable. We are constantly, ceaselessly broadcasting our deepest fears, our desires, our insecurities, and our truths. And we are simultaneously decoding those same signals in everyone around us, mostly without even realizing it.
It is a beautiful, intricate dance of survival. Our brains evolved over millions of years to become master decoders of this face-to-face kinesthetic language. It is the language that kept us alive, helped us form complex tribes, avoid predators, and allowed us to climb to the absolute top of the food chain.
But if we connect this incredible evolutionary history to the world we live in right now, this exact second, something has drastically, violently changed. Which brings us to a final, provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your day.
Consider everything we've discussed today about the richness, the absolute necessity, and the raw truth of physical body language. The 55% visual data and the 38% vocal data that tell the real story. Now ask yourself, what percentage of your communication today was done while staring down at a glowing glass screen?
Oh man. If 55% of our truth is physical and 38% is vocal, then every single time we send a text message, every time we fire off a Slack update, an email, or a DM, we are essentially amputating 93% of our ability to understand each other.
We are operating on just 7% of the data. We are relying entirely on the terms and conditions, and we have completely unplugged the neon sign. We are trying to read a silent battlefield with our eyes closed. We are sending text messages, arguing on the internet, and trying to build relationships completely blind to the pupil dilations, the crossed arms, and the foot directions that actually tell us what the other person is feeling.
The ultimate question is, are we using this digital technology to evolve into a more efficient, interconnected species? Or are we slowly blinding ourselves? Are we turning our backs on the only language that has never learned how to lie and reverting to a state where we just can't read each other anymore? Are we literally losing our fundamental survival instincts?
It's a deeply chilling thought. We possess the most sophisticated nonverbal decoding hardware on the planet, refined over millennia, and we are voluntarily choosing not to use it. We are trading the truth of the body for the comfort of the screen.
Something to really think about as you head into your next meeting, or your next date, or even just your next text thread. Pay attention to the invisible war happening right in front of your eyes. Look for the swollen noses. Watch the palm angles when people reach out to you.
Step in with your left foot.
Yes, master the 3-second pause and the geometry of the gaze. Map out the triangles. And whatever you do, pay close attention to where the feet are pointing.
Because the transcript, the script, the text message might say one thing, but the body never, ever lies.
It is recorded in the flesh. And once you learn to read it, you will never look at a simple conversation the same way again. We'll see you on the next deep dive.